We're into the next round of our season preview series. It's time to go over the AFC and NFC East divisions, the media darlings, the beneficiaries of the famous East Coast bias. Let's jump right into it. This is the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast with Erik Stenholm and Joey Moore. Thanks for following us, subscribing on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcasts, YouTube. We appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. This is our second of the preview series. Like I said, we're going into the Easts. Before we get into it, though, Joey, how you doing, man? It's been a week. Niners, a lot of drama we'll get into later, but how you doing? Football is officially back.
Yeah, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to kickoff.
We had half a game.
Yeah, half a game. To be honest, that was actually when I watched, maybe the most well-played Hall of Fame game I had seen. I mean, I don't know. It looked pretty clean.
Case Keenum was balling out.
Everyone, they're just going up and down the field. Davis Mills had a drive.
Rippon looked good.
Yeah. I mean, all of them.
These guys who probably aren't going to play a snap in 2024 were looked good.
I know. Power of the NFL. We're watching literal QB3s, and we're I'm locked in. What else am I going to watch?
Yeah, what else are you going to watch in August while baseball's in the dog days and hockey and basketball aren't on the horizon yet? The Olympics has been pretty good to watch. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's dive straight into it. The second of our preview series. Last week we did the AFC and NFC South, kind of the least prestigious divisions in the NFL. Now we're going to the ones that garner all the attention on ESPN and Fox. It's the AFC and NFC East. Let's start with the AFC. And anytime you start in the AFC East, you have to start with the multiple-time defending champions. And it's not the Patriots because it's, a new era. It was always the Patriots for close to 20 years. Now Buffalo runs this division. We'll start with them. They're minus 185 to make the playoffs. Their over-under is set at 10 wins on the nose. And then they're 15-1 to win the Super Bowl. Last year, I mean, that was probably their last best chance, in my opinion. That game against Kansas City, really one of the craziest finishes in recent NFL history. Seems like we always say that when those two teams meet in the playoffs, but Buffalo coming back, essentially, the same core with McDermott and Allen. They have changed some things on offense, changed some things on defense we'll get to in a minute. They were 6th on offense, 4th on defense last year. So obviously, even if they regress a little bit, they're still going to be a good football team. But Joey, where do you have Buffalo finishing in the AFC East? What's their record and what's your outlook for them for next season?
I actually, I have them winning it again. I have winning the division again. I have them going 11-6.
Okay.
I think that gets it done. I'm not as big on maybe the other two contenders. I will say, you mentioned it. Yeah, that Buffalo Kansas City playoff game. I'm like, if I hear that one more time, I'm like, we gonna hang a banner or something in Buffalo? Played the Chiefs close once a couple of years ago, also lost. Is that what this era of Buffalo is going to be defined as? Because that's pretty sad.
Extremely sad. It's like the Vikings. We made the NFC Championship that one time.
What was the famous one the Colts had? It said AFC Championship finalist. It's they lost it and it just said, and it was a banner. I'm like, what are we doing? But yeah, I like Buffalo. I'm not as big. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. So
AFC is just too good.
AFC, yeah. I mean, especially one of them. But I still think Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the division. I still think they're pretty solid both sides of the ball. I mean, it sure sounds like from his comments today that maybe losing Diggs might cheer up the building. The guy they took from Florida State is Keon Coleman. He seems every time I've seen him talk, he seems like a fun guy to be around. Yeah. Might be a little opposite, which does matter. We're big on vibes here.
Yes, we are. And I like him. I mean, nobody has come off more endearingly to just general NFL fans so far this season.
Yeah. And I think maybe I think the expectations are going to be down a bit. I think that might help them. But I can't trust. I mean, we'll get to it, but I think they're probably the safest pick to just,
Yeah, of the three that really have a chance in this division, they're by far the safest pick. Last week we did the NFC and AFC South pod, and for the most part, we were almost identical. The only change was I had Atlanta winning the division, you had Tampa. Here is where we're going to differ because I have Buffalo missing the playoffs. I have them finishing 9-8. So they lost Diggs and Davis and added that rookie Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel. To me, even if Coleman is extremely good, just talent-wise and scheme-wise, that is a drop-off. Yes, maybe the vibes are a little bit better, but I think that's a drop-off. You look at the running back room, I like James Cook. I think he's good, but I think that offensive line is not necessarily going to open that many holes up for him. They do have the elite quarterback bulldozer, Josh Allen. They do have elite tight ends with Kincaid and Knox. But the reason that I am fading them this year is the defense, which was fourth last year. A little bit of a mirage. I think they were closer to 10th in total defense, fourth in scoring. So they got a little bit lucky in that regard. I think they're just getting old. And I think if you look at the defense right now, what they added, Morrow, Edwards, and Rasul Douglas, like not exactly household names. It's an entirely new secondary. They lost Hyde, Poyer, and White. So that's probably their three best players in the secondary, all gone via free agency. Reports out of camp are that DeMar Hamlin might win the starting strong safety job, which if you watch his tape since he's come back, he is not a good football player anymore.
I want to refrain from any joke.
Yeah, you don't want to make any jokes here, but if you're going into camp with a guy who doesn't appear to have the skills to play that position, or play anything other than special teams at this point as a starter in your secondary, that's a problem. I think losing Hyde and Poyer, who were basically the linchpins of that defense, is going to be really tough, especially in the division where, say, Rodgers stays healthy, say Tua stays healthy. I mean, you have to stop passing attacks in that division. I just look at the opposition, which we'll get to in a minute, and I see much more dynamic rosters in New York, which I can't believe I'm saying, and in Miami than I do in Buffalo. I think last year was the last hurrah for them. I have them missing the playoffs. 9-8, just barely missing. And I don't think they're going to be a bad team, but I just think Josh Allen's starting to make mid-50s in millions per year. You've lost a lot of your best secondary players, and I mean, the vibes toward the end of last year were improving, but middle of the year, Buffalo, I think it was when they were going into Philly for that game. God, it was just like, would they fire McDermott in the middle of the season? Like, we forget these kinds of things. We haven't forgotten with Philadelphia how they fell off, but with Buffalo, because they rattled off a couple wins, especially that one at Miami end of the season, we kind of forgot how much turmoil there was in that locker room heading into the playoffs. So I'm going to fade Buffalo. I say stock arrow down. So finally, 9 teams into our preview, we have one we really, really disagree on. So yeah, Buffalo 9-8 for me. Joey has them at 11-6. Let's move on to the Jets. I think this is the most talked about team in the NFL right now, which is shocking because, like, when was the last time you said that? I mean, maybe the late 1960s with Joe Namath. Like, it really is crazy that, even after all the drama of last year with Rodgers blowing his Achilles on the third play of the season, the Jets are just right back where they were at the start of last year, the talk of the town. Over-under set at 9.5. Minus 170 to make the playoffs, 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. That's their lowest Super Bowl odds in 50 years. Really incredible for the Jets. They're just hoping everybody stays healthy. Last year, 29th on offense, led by Zach Wilson, 12th on defense, which is really impressive when you have no help from the offense. Joey, 7-10 last year. Your boy Robert Saleh, can he turn it around with a healthy Rodgers and win this division? You have Buffalo winning the division, but do you have the Jets making the playoffs?
No chance. No. In fact, I don't even think they're going to be close. I think they're going to be worse. I'm going 6-11.
Oh my goodness.
I don't get it. I don't think they're very good. I know they improved their offensive line. I know I'm not even gonna say like X's and O's, but just like something's going on. I mean, Hassan Reddick, the whole thing
Right.
feels like the building's on fire, and we haven't even got to week 1 of the preseason, and yeah, I don't believe in the coaching staff. Although, yeah, I love Robert Saleh, but
As a defensive coordinator.
yeah, and just like again, are we sure Rodgers is forget even being healthy, but I mean he wasn't good. That like in the second half of his last year in Green Bay, he's 40 or gun like he's
Yeah, he is 40, and it's been 3 years since he was the Aaron Rodgers we all remember, 2021.
that's a long time. I mean, 6-11 might be a little pessimistic. I'm just going through their schedule, and they're going to lose by 50 week 1. And I mean, okay,
You hope.
they other than getting like the Patriots twice. I mean, like even these other games, like they go to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure they're gonna? I mean, I don't know. And then they finished the season like Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Rams, Buffalo, Miami.
That is a tough stretch. Without a doubt.
They also have Houston, Buffalo again, like
Miami again.
yeah. I don't know. I think their offensive line has improved, but it was so bad. I don't know if it's gonna be super or enough improved to like go from.
Yeah, you talked about the offensive line. So they added Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, 2 guys at the very end of their careers, and then they have Elijah Vera Tucker, their first round pick from a few years ago, who I believe has torn his Achilles, his ACL, and broken a leg in his 2 years in the NFL. So, like, can he even play a couple games for them this year? We don't know. But at least they did add. I mean, Tyron Smith at one point was the best left tackle in football. He's well past his prime now. Morgan Moses, a good player for Baltimore. I think it's enough for them if Rodgers stays healthy to, they have dynamic players on offense. I have them going 10-7, another one where we disagree.
10-7.
This is pretty crazy because last week it was all chalk, and now look, we're different big time on these.
Is that making or missing it?
I have them making it. I don't have them winning the division, which will obviously tell you who I do have winning the division. I have them going 10-7. So, like I said, revamped offensive line. They added Mike Williams. They have Garrett Wilson, who, I mean, eye test alone says top 6-7 wide receiver in the NFL if you put a functioning quarterback on that team, which they should have. I think Breece Hall is going to have a breakout year. I think if I had like the second or third pick in a fantasy football draft, I might take him. Obviously McCaffrey's 1, but he's right there after him. He catches the ball out of the backfield, shifty as hell, fast as hell. I really like him. And then the defense, like last year, okay, they were 12th in scoring defense. I think they were 7th in total defense. That's really impressive when your offense isn't doing anything and you're on the field all game long. It's obvious Saleh can motivate these guys and can coach up the defense. If Rodgers is a B-, I think they win at least 9 games, probably 10. If Rodgers is hurt or a C, they're in big trouble. So they added your boy Kinlaw, great player, great locker room guy that was instrumental in all those.
Sorry, what did you say? Great player? That wasn't real.
Yeah, maybe you don't feel. I mean, he graded out as a decent player in his time with the Niners, but the weak link on an incredible defense is still probably an improvement for what they had last year, but at that position particularly. And then Reddick, if they get that situation resolved, that's a huge add.
It was over $1 million.
Unbelievable that he's willing to eat that kind of money in fines. We are a Vibes podcast, and that's
pay it.
Yeah, it's like if he agrees to a deal, does it just come out of the deal, or how does that work?
No, but I'm saying if he retires.
Oh, there's no way. Do you really think if he takes it to that, I'm changing my pay?
Well, I'm saying if he goes Gronkowski and just says, I don't want to be here, like, they send him to Detroit and he's like, I'm not going.
Oh, that's right. That was unbelievable when that happened. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to call it a day. Waited till the clock ran out so he could sign with Tampa Bay. But I mean, they were number 2 against the pass last year, and I don't think that's going to change.
Really
you
good.
have 2 of the 6 or 7 best corners in the NFL. If Reddick is healthy and plays, you have an unbelievable pass rush. You have first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, stacked at running back, elite wide receiver 1. All the tools are there. I can't believe I'm picking them to go 10-7. It's the freaking Jets. But if Rodgers is healthy and is 75%, 80% of his normal self, they'll be a pretty good team. They went 7-10 last year with by far the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I think stock arrow up for them. I wouldn't necessarily bet them like over 9.5 right now. I mean, I have them going 10-7, and I feel like that's kind of towards the ceiling of their projections. The Vegas is very high on them.
It's a 4-game difference.
Yeah, we don't usually differ that much. We differ 2 games on Buffalo, 4 on the Jets. I have a feeling this next one we're going to differ pretty significantly too. The Miami Dolphins are over under 9.5. They are minus 160 to make the playoffs, 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. We were talking last week about Tua and how can you give him that kind of contract when he's a guy who's not going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not asking them to win the Super Bowl. I'm asking them to win the division, and I do have them winning the division at 11-6. They faltered down the stretch last year, but people forget, like, through week 14, number 1 seed in the AFC, like, I think they would have been favored against Kansas City had they had a home playoff game, just based on how the regular season was going at that point. Everything changed when Buffalo beat them in week 18, and then Kansas City all of a sudden decided after that Raider game to start playing football again. But we were all ready to make McDaniel coach of the year. Tua was a dark horse MVP candidate. They had the number 2 offense last year in scoring, number 22 on defense, and that was entirely a defensive collapse in the second half. Vic Fangio was launched. They brought in a new defensive coordinator. They added OBJ, Jonnu Smith. It's already a loaded skill position group. You have 2 elite running backs at Achane and Mostert. Probably the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the NFL with Hill and Waddle. Like I said, Jonnu Smith shores up the tight end position, which they had trouble with last year. On defense, it's a complete rebuild with Anthony Weaver in there. They added Poyer, Fuller, Brooks, Tart, Harris, all new starters. So you got 5 new starters on a defense that struggled a little bit last year. Vibes are high in Miami camp, and for good reason. I have them going 11-6. I believe in Mike McDaniel. I have them winning the division. Joey, I think we're going to differ here as well.
Not too much. So I'm going 10-7.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I think they're really. I think they're really good. I think they're a really good track team. I mean, like
you love them getting off the bus.
Yeah, I think Christian Wilkins is a huge loss on defense. And yeah, OBJ. I mean, like, okay, that's like, did they need him? I mean, Jonnu Smith's a good player. I mean, they're going to
wide receiver 3, OBJ.
They're going to score a ton of points in September, October, and half of November. I still don't think Tua. I can't assume he's going to play 17 games. When it gets to December, he looks like it's a different sport. I don't particularly last year the Kansas City. I know it's Kansas City and it's the playoffs, but it was just like I was like, I'm out on this. Like, I love Mike McDaniel. I think he's still a really good coach. I think he's getting the best out of every guy in that team. But like you come to Kansas City, you go to Buffalo, you go to Baltimore, you go to Cleveland, late in December and January, and you're coming with this Miami South Beach like
track team.
It is. It looks fantastic. I mean, granted, the likelihood they play another game, like what was it, negative 10, 15?
Helmets cracking from
probably low. Yeah, I don't.
But you do have them going 10-7.
No, I mean they're a good team. They're really good. They're a really good team. I could see them even going better than that. But I no.
Much like we always say with teams like Dallas, very good roster, very good regular season team, no hope to win the Super Bowl. I definitely wouldn't take a flyer at 25-1 on Miami to win the Super Bowl, but maybe to come out of the AFC, maybe to be the number 1 seed, I would put a couple bucks on. But like you said, once it gets to road games, December, January, not a team that you want to bet on. But I think they're going to get off to a flying start just like they did last year. I think that offense is as dynamic as any in the NFL. If I had to bet on somebody to win the division, it would be Miami. One team that literally no one on earth is betting to win the division is the former powerhouse New England Patriots. Over-under set at 5 wins, 7-1 to make the playoffs, 200-1 to win the Super Bowl. Drake May is in. Looks like Jacoby Brissett probably starts the season as QB1, but it'll be handed over to Drake May pretty soon after that. You got Gerard Mayo comes in as the head coach, replacing Belichick after 24 seasons in New England. They were 31st on offense last year, 15th on defense. That's the reason Belichick's out. Offense was beyond anemic. The Mac Jones era is over. He's off to Jacksonville to back up Trevor Lawrence. I have him going 4-13. I think that's pretty pedestrian. 5 wins is their over/under. So I went slightly under. It wouldn't be a best bet to bet under 5, but 4-13 for the Pats. I can go over the changes they made on their roster, but I mean, basically, this is one that not a lot of people are going to be looking at for any kind of dynamism here. I take it by your reaction, Joey, you may have them going a little bit lower than 4-13.
I don't know where you're getting these 4 wins.
It is a tough schedule, very tough schedule.
I mean, I got them going 2-15.
2-15. So that's right there with Carolina for the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I mean, barring like injury or anything, the only games you want to say at Chicago, that's like one of them.
Mm-hmm.
At Arizona,
maybe.
After Arizona, they finish the year Buffalo, Chargers, Buffalo. They play Miami twice, obviously. Rams. Okay, at Tennessee, is that one? I mean,
sure. Yeah, I'm looking at their
Jaguars,
schedule
Texans,
here.
Niners, Seahawks, Bengals.
Home against Indianapolis. Home against the Chargers, maybe. Home against the Rams, probably not.
Does Herbert still have plantar fasciitis?
I mean, I thought 4 was fair, given that we don't know if Drake May is going to be a bum yet. I think he could, he obviously.
I think he might be decent, and they still go that bad.
Brissett, by all accounts, is going to start week 1. May probably, I would imagine, comes in maybe like week 6, week 8, something like that. But this is the most difficult schedule in the NFL, according to strength of schedule. So I can see absolutely them going 2-15. I would bet under 5, or I would bet under 5.5. I don't know about 5. But yeah, 4-13. So the whole reason that we have them going this low. So obviously there's no changes on defense. This is going to be the Belichick defense again. Gerard Mayo worked under Belichick for 5 years, played under him for many years. They're going to be behind in almost every game they play, so it's going to be hard for that defense to improve on 15th from last year. The offense, 31st last year. You would think there's only one direction to go, and that's up. I don't know. I look at this team and I go,
that says there's one more spot to fall.
Yeah. So Brissett and May at quarterback, Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson at running back, mid. That's okay. It's not terrible. Then wide receiver, they added KJ Osborne. He was always the Vikings 3. I think he's an okay player. They're going to ask him to be a 1 or a 2. I really don't know about that. They drafted a guy in the 2nd round to be an impact wide receiver. That guy Polk in the 2nd.
Yeah, I think the other Washington kid.
Yeah, I think he's fine. You put him on a functioning team, maybe he's okay. But their new offensive coordinator is Alex Van Pelt, who I guess is known for being a run-first guy. This team is going to run the ball pretty much every down. All they have is running backs. They don't have a very good offensive line. It's a bad football team. Not a lot more to say. 2-15 though. That must mean you have them. It's them and Carolina in a 2-horse race. for the number 1 pick?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
I don't think Arizona's going to be anywhere near that
No,
discussion.
I don't. No. Yeah, honestly, the only other team would be maybe the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially with them apparently punting on the season. Okay, so that's the AFC East. Let's just go through that really quick. Joey has Buffalo winning the division at 11-6. He has Miami going 10-7. He has the Jets shockingly going 6-11. He has the Patriots at 2-15. I have Buffalo at 9-8. So I have them missing the playoffs altogether. I have Miami winning that division at 11-6. I have the Jets sneaking into the playoffs at 10-7, second in the division, and then Patriots 4-13. That's our AFC East predictions on the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. Let's head to the NFC East. This has been the number 1 division for the media for, since football's been televised. You got probably the biggest market team in the Giants. You got America's team in the Cowboys that always leads the ratings. But we're going to start with the Eagles. Last year's collapse, 7th on offense last year, 30th on defense from a team that was in the Super Bowl the year prior, and I believe was 10-1 or 9-1 through 11 weeks last year before just an utter collapse and went 1-6 down the stretch, completely dismantled by SF, Tampa Bay, Dallas, even Arizona. The defense was just absolutely eviscerated for those last 6 weeks. I have them going 10-7. I know that's a little bit controversial. I just look at the NFC as a whole, and I say, okay, if Philly drops off like we kind of expect with how they fell apart last year, who moves up? I don't really see that many teams in the NFC capable of leapfrogging them, especially when you look at, I think the South is not very good. I think the Seahawks are a little down in the West. I think the Rams are getting old. There's not a lot of teams that I could see leapfrogging them. So I have them finishing second in the division, 10-7. They added Barkley. That's a massive improvement at running back for them. They are going to run the ball all over the place. They added Uzoma, Parker, Mekhi Becton. They took a flyer on him. My question to you, Joey, is obviously with them at over under 10.5, minus 250 playoffs, 15-1 Super Bowl, they are being priced as an elite team. Do you see them as an elite team in 2024, and do you believe in Jalen Hurts for this season and beyond for them?
To put it simply, no, and no. No, I think Jason Kelce is a Titanic loss. Article came out today about how everyone's eyes that were looking at Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni basically were telling us what we saw. Something's way off, way, way, way off. And Jalen Hurts, it's wild to me to even think about the year he had in 22 when he came really close to winning the MVP and the Super Bowl. He looked awful at times last year. I don't see it. I know when the Niners played him, it was kind of joked about, but a couple of them said post game, there's the blueprint for beating it. If you watch them, the way they rushed them and everything, they're like, dude, throw the ball, go through your progressions, don't be so quick. And he struggled. His touchdown numbers, his numbers will be, never terrible because he still can move a bit. And he'd have 10 rushing touchdowns for 8.5 yards total. That's another thing. But and even too, you heard from the players, he's unapproachable. His body language, you just look at it and you're just like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually there's a reason why he wasn't a first round pick. There's a reason why he was benched for Tua back in college. It's I'm not going to say I'm completely out on the guy, but him with his contract is a horrible contract right now. And I also, on top of that, I don't think the coaching staff helped him whatsoever last year. And I think the one thing they had, I always said he had the Avengers blocking for him. Well, one of them's gone, and the others are getting a bit older. And yeah, their defense was just pathetic.
Yeah, I think to solve their defense, so they brought in Devin White, getting pretty damn old. Bryce Huff, getting pretty damn old. CJ Gardner-Johnson, getting pretty damn old. Like, it's not like they brought in young talent to try to bolster a defense that ended up finishing 30th last year. Like, there's a reason I don't have them winning the division, and it's last year the final 7 games were a disaster, and they've added some talent to the roster, they've lost some, but it's all still very old. Other than quarterback, I mean, even Saquon Barkley, he's not old, but for a running back, he's got a lot of tread on the tires. So this is a very veteran team. I think it strikes me as a team that, again, will start off hot because it's nothing but veterans who know how to win football games. But towards the end of the year, guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to get tired. I have them falling off in the second half. I have them going 10-7 and just missing out. What are you going to go with for their final record?
I think they go 9-8.
Okay.
But miss the playoffs. I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Like I said, again, over under 10.5. The under on 10.5 there might be a play. We'd think about it. Minus 250 to make the playoffs. That's a pretty steep price for Philly. Their chief rival this year and always, Dallas. Last year they were number 1 on offense, number 5 on defense. So they lost Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator. I thought it was a lovely move by signing Mike Zimmer to replace him. I think that's probably an upgrade. Like, people say Dan Quinn, one of the best defensive coordinators in football. He was involved with the Seahawks when they won the Super Bowl in 2013. He made it back to the Super Bowl with Atlanta in 2016. Last year, I mean, he had Dallas in a good position, and then that Green Bay game just kind of made him look like a fool. But, I mean, Mike Zimmer, as a defensive coordinator, that's as good a hire as you can get. As a head coach at this age, probably the game has passed him by a little bit, but all they're asking him to do is coach that defense. He brought former Viking Eric Kendricks with him. They were 5th last year. They haven't lost a ton of production. I think Dallas is going to be significantly better on defense. I think they'll be a little bit worse on offense. They swapped out Pollard for Zeke, but for the most part, it's the same core. It's just the offensive line is a little older and a little worse. Dak is playing on a 1-year deal, so that cloud is going to be hanging over there. I have them going 10-7 and winning the division on a tiebreaker. It's not like I have them as world beaters. I do have them winning the division, though. Their over-unders 9.5, minus 190 to make the playoffs, 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. What do you have for Dallas in 2024?
Same thing, 10-7, win the division. Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, I'm also assuming CeeDee Lamb eventually is there. But yeah, I don't think they've had a pretty uneventful offseason, given, what they usually do as a, media darling organization trying to be in the headlines. But I think they've actually been quite smart. Again, assuming CeeDee Lamb eventually shows up, but yeah, I mean, Tony Pollard last year, I know he came off an injury, but he wasn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what Zeke's got left, which I'm not sure is going to be much. But I think, again, kind of like Miami, I think they're a good team. I got a good roster, good players, good good coaches. Like, they'll be 10-7. I do think, they I don't think they have another 12-win season, but they're a good team. They're going to win. I think they'll win the division and then probably lose in the first round.
And that'll be it for Mike McCarthy at that point. I mean, it's really amazing he's still there after that Green Bay game.
Yeah, but if you're him, you're like, what? I mean, so I think he's had 3, like, they're
12-win seasons,
12-5, whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they got
36-15 as their head coach. Now, granted, 0-3 in the playoffs, but they're 1-3 in the playoffs, but still. Yeah, they're good. Like we said with Miami, they're going to be good. They're not going anywhere once they get to the playoffs. I do like adding Zimmer, though. I feel like that it's not going to take them over the hump, but maybe they win the division handily. Maybe they win a playoff game because you have, the Dan Quinn defense has always been, trying to force turnovers and being, hectic, and, Mike Zimmer's defense has always been adjustments and the famous double A gap blitz. So, like, Zimmer's defenses got better as the game went along. Dan Quinn's defenses were always supremely talented and like lockdown corners, like the Legion of Boom defense. And then last year, Deron Bland had 8 picks and set all sorts of NFL records. The year before, Trayvon Diggs had all those picks and was heading towards NFL records. So I think it's a good change up, good defensive hire. Dallas 10-7, win the division. Probably not go too far after that. Next, we'll go with Washington. Over under 6.5, plus 245 to make the playoffs, 150-1 to win the Super Bowl. I have them going 8-9. I'll say that off the top. They're going to be one of my best bets at over 6.5. In some places, you can get over 6. To me, this is twofold. Number one, you have last year, 25th on offense, distant 32nd on defense. You have adults in the room now. Ron Rivera's gone. Eric Bieniemy's gone. If you read any of the stories from the local Washington reporters about that team and that particularly Rivera and Bieniemy at the end of last season, that is as toxic and unwinnable a situation as you can imagine. They're on a 9-game losing streak, by the way, heading into the season. Really unbelievable that it even made it to that point. I think most teams would have fired either Rivera or Bieniemy during the season after all of that drama. The defense is going to be significantly improved. You bring in Dan Quinn, who, again, you probably don't think of him as a Super Bowl winning coach or a coach that has the caliber to win, a Super Bowl ever since the 28-3 loss. But I mean, he was good for Atlanta. He was an excellent defensive coordinator in both Dallas and Seattle. They spent more than anybody on defense, and deservedly so, 32nd last year. So you got Bobby Wagner, first ballot Hall of Famer, brought in. Dorrance Armstrong, who was probably the second best defensive lineman on Dallas last year. They also brought in Farrell from the Niners, Dante Fowler, Frankie Louvu, Michael Davis, Jeremy Chin. I mean, all these guys that got multi-year contracts for decent amounts of money. It's a professional defense now. The offense is going to struggle. You got Jaden Daniels in year 1. He's 24. He is ready for the NFL. Like, whatever he's going to be that quick because he's not 21. I mean, we're going to see right away what he is. I think this is a middling team. I don't think this is a bad football team. I have them at 8-9. Joey, what do you think about the fight in Jaden Daniels is heading into year 1?
They've always been a team the last couple of years that I feel like is better than what their record is. But this year I'm going 7-9.
7-10.
Yeah, new math.
Yeah,
new NFL math. 7.
Welcome to 2024.
Yeah, I think they'll be better. I like Jaden Daniels. I like him coming out. It's weird to hear he's 24. I was like, yeah, he was Brandon Aiyuk's teammate at Arizona State. Aiyuk is now on his 5th-year option.
He was throwing to Pearsall and
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll be better. They can only be better on defense. I 100% agree on the coaching staff with the adults being in the room. Yeah, I think they'll be better. It's hard to go from 4 wins to 4, like double it. I think that's difficult. Gene Daniels probably struggles a bit. I also worry about his size, how thin he is.
For the way he plays.
Yeah, but I think they go 7-9.
One quick note on them: they're going to start rookies at quarterback, wide receiver with McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke. Left tackle and tight end will also start rookies. Cliff Kingsbury brought in as offensive coordinator. Again, another guy, I don't really like him as a head coach at all. As an offensive coordinator, not too bad. I mean, not a bad hire, especially when you're working with a young guy coming straight out of a college offense. I think they'll be middling. I think, yeah, like you said, 7 wins, 8 wins, somewhere around there, and that'll be good enough to get us a win on that bet. So that's one I like. I'll definitely go over it a little bit more later. Let's round out the NFC East with the New York Giants. Basically the same as Washington. They're over-under set at 6.5, 150-1 to win the Super Bowl, 4-1 to make the playoffs. I have them significantly worse than Washington, and this is, based on them not having hardly any talent on offense. Yes, their defense is, highly paid, much improved. It's going to be a good defense. I just think has a chance to be the 32nd ranked offense in the NFL. Last year, they were 30th on offense, 26th on defense. Daboll's on the hot seat. This is for sure Daniel Jones' last season with the Giants. All reports out of camp right now, Malik Neighbors is so far and away the best player on that offense, and he has not played an NFL snap yet. People saying Daniel Jones can't hit water falling out of a boat so far in camp. Devin Singletary replaces Saquon Barkley. He is not showing any burst. I think this is going to be the worst offense in the NFL. I have them going 5-12 just off the strength of the defense. They brought in Brian Burns for a ton of money and a ton of draft capital. Also brought in Jalen Phillips. They were 29th against the run last year, so they're going to try to bolster the defense. But, I mean, miserable offense. 5-12 for me, Joey.
Yeah, I'm going 4-13. I think they're terrible. Although I will say I did watch Hard Knocks with them, and which I actually thought was like probably one of the cooler Hard Knocks. They did the offseason. Did you watch it?
I watched a couple episodes. So
I
I think it was the first two.
Cool. And yeah, I love Malik Neighbors.
Oh, good on Dayball for losing weight, by the way. Tip of the cap to you.
You know, hey, Dayball, whatever helps you keep your job.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're the most hated man in the building. But yeah, I love Malik Neighbors. I think he's going to be better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's a stud. But then, yeah, it's him and a bunch of other guys. It's just funny the way they talk about Daniel Jones in that show. It's like yeah, I was just like support Daniel. We're trying to replace him, but like probably.
Oh my God, the video of the GM and his kids in his office, and all of his kids are saying, we need to draft a quarterback. And they're like, we should get Jaden Daniels. We should get Drake May. And he's just like, okay, kids. And all the comments on that video on social media are like, the kids know more than the GM. Fire his ass. It's just.
I mean, it's just like, yeah. I do like Brian Burns a lot. I know they gave up a lot in picks and money, but he was a guy I thought the Niners might take a swing at. Yeah, they also lost a safety. Was it McKinney? I think they lost him too. And Saquon, which people want to talk about, like Saquon's like the name. I'm like, he is like, I don't think he's as good as people like impact wise. Like
he had one elite
number one, he's a
season,
running back, and like two, like what are they going to do? Pay him top of the market money to be 5-12? I mean, I don't know. Like, but yeah, he's better than Devin Singletary.
It
so
is.
We'll see.
Oh.
The offensive line was bad. Should be a little bit better, but still, and Daniel Jones is terrible.
How we lost to them in the playoffs in 2022 is just beyond me. I mean, we made Daniel Jones look like Vic. Yeah. Well, oh my God. He was Vanilla Vic for that 1 week. Oh my God. It looks worse and worse the further away you get from it. Okay, there's the NFC East. We'll do my picks first. I had Dallas 10-7 win the division on a tiebreaker over Philly, also at 10-7. I have Washington at a surprising 8-9. I have the Giants falling off to 5-12. Joey has Dallas winning the division outright at 10-7. Philly 9-8. Washington 7-10, and then the Giants 4-13. There's your NFC East from the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. It's time for America's favorite segment, Joey's Jack and the Bum of the Week. More candidates. There's never a shortage of drama. We just spoke about Daniel Jones. He'll be one of the candidates. Just from watching a little bit of Hard Knocks, you watched the whole thing. I just watched a couple episodes. No respect for him in that room. Nobody believes in him. His performance has been awful in camp by all indications. It's a no-win situation for him. Feel bad for the guy because he shouldn't be, starting and being in this kind of a position. He should be backing up somewhere, and I'm sure he will starting next year. But man, he's just the worst possible position to be in right now. So poor Daniel Jones.
All the way to the bank.
Yeah, no, he got 3 years, $120 million. I think he'll be okay. Jordan Addison has to be a Jack and the Bum of the Week candidate. He was formally charged with DUI. Looks like he may avoid being suspended for the Vikings this season for 2 games or 4 games, whatever it ends up being, because the legal process still has to play out. But, I mean, what a bum. Asleep at the wheel at LAX. The last thing you need from a young, budding superstar player is for him to not be able to handle his business off the field. So he's on that list. Jim Harbaugh pulling a Pete Carroll, drops a fucking bomb on Michigan and then leaves. I mean, this story that came out today, if he wanted to go back to college, he'd be suspended for 4 years for his infractions at Michigan. He clearly, won the national title and then dropped the mic, said, I'm never coaching college football again. So he's got to be on there. And then if I was to pick the Jack in the Bum this week, I'd pick the NFL Top 100. How you have Mahomes at 4 is beyond me. I mean, when I saw that, obviously there's so many others. Dak was too high. Micah Parsons was too low. Justin Jefferson I thought was too low. But, I mean, the Mahomes being 4 was just absurd. To have him 2 spots below Lamar, who is, yes, a multiple-time MVP, but never has won significant games in his life. And then Tyreek Hill, number 1. Sure. I mean, we've seen.
I don't hate it.
I mean, I don't hate it. Sure,
I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
But I just the top of that list particularly was just very odd. Like, I love Christian McCaffrey, love Tyreek Hill, love Lamar Jackson. None of them are even remotely close to Mahomes. So I thought that list was pretty flawed. But
you know what? I'll call an audible because I got something else. Well, here we go. We'll put honorable mention. I hate training camp scuffles. I hate them. They're so stupid. Swinging helmets at each other, punching. Like, what are you going to do? Break your hand? Like, what's going on?
You see DK Metcalf today?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
What are you doing?
It's going to get someone killed.
Like, just stupid. Just stupid. The only thing dumber is charging the mound in baseball, and the whole damn zip code comes out to the mound to just stare at each other. But no, I'll talk about because if I was to pick one of these before I don't know, I had just watched something on training camp scuffles and I just felt like to put it. But here we go. We're calling it audible. The Jack and Bum week is the top 100 because I think it's so stupid. I don't like, when do they vote? What's the criteria? Like, I think, I don't know if they're real or not, but somebody posted like 4 or 5 athletes lists. And I'm like, there's no way this is a list. Like, no way. Like, that's got to be your buddy from college or something. Like, you don't know who did it, like who wrote it. But like after last year, it's got like, I forget the player, but like it was so stupid. But yeah, when is it? Not one person in football, fan, coach, player, whatever, is not taking Mahomes first. So that's stupid. And like again, the whole overvalue of like quarterbacks. There had to be, I don't know, 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the top like 25. Like,
including Dak, which Burrow at 53, Dak at 15.
Like, what's the criteria? Like, what is it? I mean, I don't know. I really do think players have like, I really do sometimes think fans are smarter than players. Like, just stuff. I really do.
I know what you're talking about with those lists. They're like handwritten lists that they posted on the NFL Twitter account. And like, like some guys had like Brian Burns number 3, or someone had Max Crosby number 1. I was like, Max Crosby number 1. Very interesting. Again, by the way, I believe he finished either 9th or 10th this year.
Oh, he was high. He was really high.
Great player. Would love to have him on the Vikings. Not remotely close to top 10. Like, very strange list. Some of these guys that are up that high, Dak, Crosby, again with the Lamar, sure, 8th, 7th, 5th, sure. 2nd ahead of Mahomes? Absolutely not.
Yeah, you start to get into this. Like, I think Jalen Hurts was like 14th or 15th. Come on, guys.
Ahead of he's up there ahead of Josh Allen, I believe.
Yeah, and he's ahead of Burrow by like 40 spots.
Yeah.
Huh? Like,
he is in that class with
what's the
Herbert
criteria?
and
Rodgers
Tua.
is like 90 something and he didn't play.
Yeah.
Which is like if he's in the top 100, you're factoring in he's playing.
They've been doing this for like 15 years. I remember the 2013 edition had Adrian Peterson number 1, Tom Brady number 2, which you had to do it after it was like maybe the greatest season by a running back of all time. But for the most part, there's minimal controversy. It was always Brady or Manning or Rodgers or Mahomes or Breeze or, whoever the clear number one is at that time. Or I believe one time it was Von Miller when he had that 20-plus sack season. One time it was Aaron Donald, who, I get it. This one, Tyreek Hill, amazing player. I would argue he's the second best wide receiver in the NFL. I think a lot of people would say he's number one or 1A. Number one player in the entire NFL. Oh boy.
I mean,
it's like if MLB did this and Ohtani was like 7th and like Paul Skeens was number one or something. You're like, really? You're like,
hey, I don't watch a whole lot of baseball, but that guy seems pretty good. Yeah, no, I
the 2014 NBA Top 100. We got LeBron at 4, but we got Kawhi Leonard at number 1. You're like, oh, interesting.
Is that real?
No, they would never do that. Everybody knows who number 1 is. This is the Michael Jordan / LeBron James of the NFL.
Well, I know people. I think maybe players like fans probably we could just put Mahomes on every single one of these ballots, number 1. But they're like, let's be cool.
Maybe it's a PR problem. Maybe guys just don't like Mahomes, and they were like, "Fuck him, I'm putting him 14th."
I think it's. I mean, they're still putting him in the top.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw that, I was like, great. This dude's about to just chew on this for 5 months and win
again.
another Super Bowl. It's just I mean, my bigger problem with his ranking is you want to put him 4th behind again after last year. You want to put him behind Tyreek, fine. If not, why don't we just name the top 100 quarterbacks? You know what I'm saying? You want to put him behind Tyreek, fine. You want to put him behind McCaffrey after last year, fine. You want to put him behind
Micah Parsons. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whoever went defense, fine. He's got to be the top quarterback. Why is he?
Yeah.
I don't care. Lamar Jackson won the MVP. I do not care.
You ask. Say there's no Chiefs and Ravens fans at a bar. You ask 100 football fans who's the best quarterback in the NFL. I'd be surprised if more than 1 or 2 said Lamar. Everyone would say Mahomes. It's just, what are we doing? It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, I mean he's gonna be. I mean, I thought about it. If he wins again, first guy ever to 3 in a row, I think you could have a serious conversation with him and Tom right now.
Which is absolutely insane to say.
Because if he wins it again, he's gonna win another MVP. I would think.
Really is unbelievable.
Barring he plays average to good. And maybe Kelsey has the 3 touchdowns, or maybe Chris Jones has 3 sacks or something. But he gonna win it again.
Oh, that's another one. Chris Jones, great player. What was he doing?
He was in the top 10.
He was 6th or 7th. Great player.
He's really good. He's one of those guys that oh yeah, Micah Parsons, cool. Myles Garrett, cool. But when it gets to January, especially the Super Bowl, who the frick is blocking 95? He's in the backfield every play. He's really good.
Yeah.
He's really good.
So there's Joey's Jack in the Bum of the week. He was going to go with training camp scuffles. He ends up going with the NFL Top 100 rankings. Let's do a quick look at the You Like That picks of the week. We gave you 2 negative picks last week. We were fade Jacksonville and fade New Orleans. This week, we're going to go positive. We're going to get it back to 2 of each. I've got 2 overs for you. We're going to go with Miami over 9.5. Favorable schedule, elite roster, elite coaching staff with McDaniel and Weaver. This has to be the year for them. I mean, you have unbelievable wide receiver talent, unbelievable running back talent, an offensive line that I would say is above average. Brought in an elite tight end. The defense has been rebuilt with 5 new starters. If it's not now with Tua and McDaniel, it's not going to happen. I like them over 9.5. I actually bet them over 10.5 plus 240 earlier in the year when I saw that number, because I was like, they get to 11 wins. I think there's a decent probability of that happening. I think Buffalo's loss in that division is Miami's gain. So give me Miami over 9.5. And then the pick I discussed earlier, Washington over 6.5. I think that's great value. Easy schedule, adults in the room. Like I said, I mean, they're on a 9-game losing streak after the tire fire with Rivera and Bieniemy. Daniels is pro ready now at age 24. The defense, I think, will go from 32nd to like maybe 20th, 19th, something like that. And that's enough to get him right around 500. As long as the quarterback, whoever it could be, there's some rumors that Mariota might get some playing time, but I think, 7 and 10, 8 and 9, right somewhere in there. Give me Washington over 6.5. So there's your You Like That picks. For our second preview pod, we're doing Miami over 9.5 and Washington over 6.5 for this week in our AFC and NFC East preview. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about. And we've been talking about them a lot in this pod. We're going to go over it again. This is a team that they always move the needle. Last year, probably the most talked about team in the league in the latter half of the season. You're calling a continued fade for one of the supposed Super Bowl contenders in the NFC.
Yep. I feel pretty great, baby, about the downfall of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it continues. I think they were beyond exposed last year. I think Jason Kelce again. For a team that could not stop the bleeding last year, he was one guy I thought, you look to stop it. Couldn't. Granted, again, he's a center. Not, but I mean, damn good center. Call him, I'm sure he's helping Jalen Hurts with protections and stuff like that. Their defense was pathetic last year. I think, maybe I just took way too much selfish excitement out of when the Niners went to Philly and just dog walked them. I mean, again,
stomped.
Like just, took on the team bouncer, the whole city, and just like, I think it was 42-19. Deebo Samuel ran his mouth for like 7 months after the NFC Championship and went in there and like, okay, who's stopping him? Just quick screen, quick touchdown. It's like, didn't want to tackle. It's like one thing, like, oh my God, who had him covered? It's something. It's like, don't want to tackle. We're slow everywhere. And it's like,
this is the thing about that though, is we didn't expect it to be that much of a dog walking. What was bizarre was the next 2 weeks after that. So they obviously, the Niners throttled them. There was so much emotion in that game, and the Niners put everything into it. The next 2 weeks, they had the same result happen with Tampa and freaking Arizona. They both just nuked them.
Especially after the NFC title game, and like you start to be like, there was like I wouldn't say like a whole war of words between the two teams, but like I can 100% see the Niners being like damn, like what the hell? We were like throwing out Josh Johnson out there in the NFC Championship, and then if I was an Eagles fan or player, I'd be like, well, screw you, we knocked your guy, like dude, block him. Which I feel like that 100% too. My personal like objective opinion is like the last time. I mean, he didn't knock. I've never seen a guy need like Tommy John after like one play. I've not seen that before. But like, yeah, if I was Philly, I'd be like, yeah, screw you, block him. And if whatever, so they have to hold back and forth. I watched so many Eagles podcasts around that time. They were like so upset the Niners, because the Niners were favored. Like Philly was like 9-1 or something in Philly. It's like, we think this team's better. And like the podcast, I listened to like Eagles fan podcast, like, this is so disrespectful.
Disrespect.
Like if I wasn't like invested as a fan and just being like objective, I would have been like, I think the Niners are going to win. Did I think it was going to be that bad? No, I did not. But I was like,
if you go back to those pods, you were pretty damn confident heading
like
into
they're better.
Yeah.
And then but then I'd watch like the Eagle fan like post game. They're like, well, this is just obviously a really good team. Like this was like their Super Bowl. I'm like, was yours too, bud. And like we'll get them next week. Like we'll go to Dallas. Like we'll handle them. I'm like, and then I was listening. I'm like, you sure you're beating Dallas? Like they're like, I mean, at the time weren't they like 8-2 or like they're right there.
You called that one last year. You picked Dallas. That was one of our picks of the week, and they just crushed them.
Like. And then you start to be like, oh my God, this okay. And then I don't know who they played. You said Arizona.
It was Tampa that they lost to. Big. I gotta pull up the schedule again. They lost to Tampa big, and then they lost to Arizona, who had already come.
I know they lost to Arizona. I thought that was like a New Year's. I remember watching on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, they lost to. Let's see.
I thought it was Seattle. It was a Monday nighter.
Seattle Monday nighter 20-17. And then Arizona they lost 35-31. They lost 27-10 to the Giants in week 18.
Yeah, it makes you think how were they 9-1? Anyways, I'm not gonna drag it on. I think Nick Sirianni. I mean, boy, did they miss Steichen and Gannon? I mean, sure seemed like they were the coaches on that football team. And we'll see what Kellen Moore can do with Jalen Hurts, but big fan of Cooper DeJean though. Hope he does well.
The great white hope, Cooper DeJean.
Iowa. That's all. That's the only reason. Nothing else.
Yeah. So he's got a nose for the ball, hard worker.
He just knows where to be.
Yeah.
First guy in, last guy out.
Sneaky fast, sneaky quick. Okay, Philadelphia missing the playoffs. Joey's feels great, baby. I wasn't bold enough to pick that. I still think they're a decent team, but all the trend lines say way down there. So I kind of agree with that one. Let's close the pod real quick with some Vikings and Niners takes. Let's start with the Niners because they're one of the talks of the league right now. The Brandon Aiyuk drama has reached an absolute fever pitch. So 2 nights ago, Matt Mayoko with NBC Sports reported that the Niners had deals in place with both Cleveland and New England, and it was kind of in Ayuk's camp at that point to get it done. Reports today say the New England deal is out. You said there was a report that New England offered him 4 years at $32 million per year, and he turned it down. Most recent report I saw was that Pittsburgh is back in the sweepstakes, so it's essentially Pittsburgh and Cleveland fighting for Aiyuk. The Niners appear to not be budging on offering him a contract extension. So how does this thing get resolved, man? I mean, I know you want it to be resolved as soon as possible.
I have no clue. This is like the one I've been like the least sure of, like how I think it's going to end up. Like the other ones, like
Bosa, you were like, it's going to get done.
Like it's going to get number one, it came off defensive player of the year, plays a premium position. They also have no other pass rushers. It just was like, it's just going to be like, it's a huge deal. How big is it, right? And ended up being made him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. With Aiyuk, it's like they already have Deebo making a ton of money. They took Pearsall in the first, like the need isn't as big. The other guys they've done, the one I keep going, like Buckner was like, boom, I can't keep you money, trade him by the draft, like proactive. This one, they didn't do that. So like every guy they didn't do that with, they signed, no matter how long it took, whether it was Kittle, Fred Warner. Deebo was like all over the town saying he wants out. Well, he's all, happy woohoo in Santa Clara, like it never happened. It's like, but like this one is just weird to me because I really like, they're serious, like that they're looking to move him. If they can get, players for this year.
It was mentioned by Mayoko in that piece that it appears if the Cleveland deal were to go through and Aiyuk were to accept the terms with Cleveland, Amari Cooper would be coming back. And you said you have little to no interest in that.
No, I don't.
You would rather a pick or a defensive player?
Yeah, I mean, the one, it's hard to say. Like, obviously, if New England's out, fine. But, like, it seems like Pittsburgh, like, the fact that they were like, oh, they're not in it. Oh, they're back in it now. Like, they were out. Now they're, I don't know. It sure seems like he wants to go there. Like, that's where he wants to go. But, like, again, the Niners don't care to, like, in not, like, a mean way. They're like, we don't have to make you happy, Brandon. Like, we'll send you wherever we – like, oh, they got rid of Trey Lance. Like, oh, they sent him away. It was tough. Like, they sent him to the Dallas Cowboys who have Dak Prescott. Like, he ain't playing. He's in a worse situation than he is with the Niners. So Pittsburgh's interesting because I heard basically they said, we want a 2 and Pickens. I'm like, okay, that's a lot. And then some guy said that some Pittsburgh reporter said that's essentially the Niners saying, give us a 1.
Yeah.
Which, like, you trade him for a 1, like, I think that's decent value. Like, with how
a Pittsburgh 1, yeah, that's probably the 12th, 15th pick.
Yeah, it's decent. But again, I think someone at the draft this year would have traded pick 16, right? Like the Jaguars, they lost Calvin Ridley. Could they have done it? I think they had like pick 17 or something. Could one of why them not doing this at the draft makes me think they really planned on. I don't know if they plan on signing him, but they plan on having him on the team this year. And I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is just going to miss. He might do one of those things where he misses like the first half.
Yeah.
And then he accrues the year by playing the second half.
Yeah.
But I do think this team could be just naive, but I do think this team is pretty tight. And this probably is the last year to try and win a Super Bowl. One of them. I mean,
this might be the last year where you come into the season as a favorite. I mean, right now you are the second favorite to win.
I mean, the thing about taking Purdy, the last pick, is when you extend him, it doesn't go you extend Caleb Williams, he already has a decent cap hit being the first pick.
Yeah.
His cap hit's going from my salary to we're looking at 50 plus million a year. That's 2 Pro Bowl, all pro players got to go. I don't know. I really don't know how it works, but I'm more leaning he's not.
When I text you about this, when I texted you during the Debo saga and the Bosa one, you had lines in the sand. You knew exactly where you stood, and you had a strong opinion on what was going to happen. With this one, this is really unpredictable for you, right?
It's very. I really am not. A couple weeks ago, I think I texted you. I was like, "We'll see you week 1, Brandon. Do whatever you're going to do. You have no leverage." He might find that out. I mean, if he wants a huge money, there's only a finite amount of teams that want to pay it. And then if it's the Patriots, do you want to go there?
And the answer to that is no.
So eventually the Niners are going to be well,
we did what we could.
Left. We're the only team left. We're playing musical chairs. We're the only one that got a butt in our seat. And there's your 5th-year option sitting here. So Pittsburgh's interesting because I saw this floater. I don't know if this was real or not. I don't know what it was, but I would love it if they traded him straight up for Alex Highsmith.
Would Pittsburgh do that? I don't know Highsmith's contract situation, but
I don't know either. Probably should, but I don't because I didn't think it was a real.
I mean, I don't care what it is. If I'm the Niners, I drive him to the airport.
I mean, that's what Google's for.
This has got to be his 4th or 5th season, so he's probably in a similar situation to Aiyuk. But I mean, that's a elite.
So last year he signed a 4-year extension, $68 million.
Okay, that's a position of need for the Niners right there. That would be real.
What is that? 17 a year.
Yeah, $17 million a year. Hard to take. I mean, what's Ayuk's 5th-year option? It's got to be
14.
Yeah. Oh boy. Might be a decent move. Would you rather have that or a 1? I mean, you probably take a 1, but again, your window is
it's really this year.
Yeah.
It really I think I would do it. Do you think Pittsburgh would have to throw an extra thing in there?
No, I don't think so. Because of if it's 3 years or 4 years of Highsmith for 1 year of Aiyuk plus.
Well, I don't think they do the deal unless he's already extended.
Well, at a huge clip. I mean, a Highsmith, that's a lot of money. That's not
it's half
$32 million.
He wants.
Yeah. That's an interesting trade. If that went down, that is one of the all-time training.
How about Brandon Aiyuk and a 1 for TJ Watt? Who says no?
And no. Let's do a quick look at the Vikings before we close the pod. So positive reports out of camp on a lot of stuff. Obviously, last week we talked about the horrible cornerback situation, but you look at the team as it's currently constructed. I'm really happy with what I'm hearing out of camp. Everything except interior offensive line has been, they've been talking about Darnold's been pretty good. McCarthy's been impressive. Wide receivers have been good. We have this situation where we have 6 starting safeties. We have 3 guys who are going to play pretty much every down in Bynum, Smith, and Metellus. And then after that, we have these backup safeties that are supposedly balling out to the point where the Vikings are considering at times playing with a 4-safety system, where essentially one of those linebackers that would be taken out for a defensive back in the nickel or the dime would be replaced by a safety rather than a corner. And I mean, that's really exciting to hear that Brian Flores is going, I have chess pieces to make this cornerback problem go away. So I'm feeling really positive about our defense. The one thing I will call out is the viral video of the Vikings offensive lineman, Ed Ingram, who we drafted out of LSU a couple of years ago, going up against, I believe, our 6th string Jonah Williams defensive lineman and getting absolutely just bum rushed over and over in the drills. If you haven't seen the video, I would imagine, Joey, you haven't. He just gets absolutely annihilated over and over again, and yet Kevin O'Connell still insists that that Ed Ingram is a starting right guard for the Vikings. The entire fan base wants Dalton Risner to start at right guard. Blake Brandel is supposed to be moving to left guard. The videos that come out of camp, I mean, this is the only time this happens in an NFL season where guys, barely wearing pads or wearing those helmets with the sponges all over them, and people are trying to get information from that. It feels like Vikings Twitter has mutinied Ed Ingram to the point where they will not let him start. Like, as much as I feel like fans have an impact on certain parts of sports, I feel like Vikings fans at a certain point can kind of dictate what the front office does. So they wanted the team to sign Duke Shelley, who was like our third corner a few years ago, who the fans love him, and he's just a hard-nosed guy. They did sign him. They pressured the team to sign Dalton Risner last year. He came, he played really well, and then we cut him at the start of the new league year. The fans, again, demanded we sign Dalton Risner again and put him in at starting right guard. They did sign Dalton Risner, and now the fans see Ed Ingram starting in all these drills, getting put on skates by 6th-string defensive linemen, and they are just begging for Kevin O'Connell to cut the guy. So Vikings storylines right now, interior offensive line is a problem. The fans want Ed Ingram out. If you look at any Vikings message board or Vikings Twitter, basically every comment is, have you cut Ed Ingram yet? So that poor guy, 3rd year out of LSU, the #1 bum of the week for Vikings fans. But all reports out of camp is that the defense looks good and McCarthy has met and exceeded expectations. So you can't really ask for too much more.
No, that's fine. It's funny though. Like, yeah, trying to think like who. Well, I remember the playoff game against Minnesota when Diggs ran by Keller Witherspoon.
Oh.
I did feel like the entire Bay Area was like, get this MFer off the field. And not roster decision.
Shanahan had to listen.
Like, it was almost like he was like, well, we're all seeing like, okay, yeah. The other guy was Mike McGlinchey. My this podcast didn't get him off the field, but
hey, you tried, and somehow still the Broncos gave him $60 million. Good for him. Tip of the cap, Big Mike. Yeah. Good for you. No, it's insane that when there's no football to watch and all you get is these little clips, how Vikings fans have already made the decision for the team. Like, if you start Ed Ingram week 1 instead of Dalton Risner, like we ride at dawn. Like, I love that about football fans, how even the minutia, the right guard is probably the least valuable member of the offensive line, and Vikings fans are just staying up at night just like, oh my God, what are we going to do at right guard? Like, this is why we love the NFL.
It's exactly why the NFL is so, because like it is. It's not like hyperbole. Like people, oh my God, I got 2 more hours of work today, but like, what are the Vikings doing at right guard?
Yeah, you're at work just busting your ass, and you're like, do we need to trade for a corner? Like, do we need to make a move?
Yeah, you're like, and I'll also have those TBS reports in by 5.
God bless the NFL. This is all that comes into our minds during the week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us again for another episode of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon, whatever, we really appreciate when you guys listen and like and share and leave a review. We really appreciate it. If you're listening right now, pop us a review so that we know you're listening. I look at our stats and I see that we do have quite a few listeners out there, and it's really exciting, but want to hear from you. Email the pod, ericstenholm92@gmail.com. Go to our landing page if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, and just leave us a review there. We really appreciate when you guys listen and give us some feedback. So we got a few more pods before the season starts. Next week, we're going to do the AFC North and AFC West. And then after that, we'll do season predictions. And of course, the NFC North and NFC West, our most important divisions here on this pod. Thanks everybody for listening again to another episode, and we will see you next week.